Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of the video, and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
I'm Kimberly Peterson, Chief of Police with the Fremont Police Department. The goal of this video is to provide you detailed information on the officer-involved shooting which occurred April 1st, 2021, as well as to walk you through the video evidence. I will provide you specific facts about the incident, show you video evidence, and we will also post this and the video to our transparency portal. Here are some brief facts. This is the third officer-involved shooting we've experienced since the start of 2021. The incident occurred on April 1st, 2021 at 6:25 p.m. The location was in the parking lot of the Hyatt Place Hotel, located in the 3100 block of West Warren Avenue. The involved officers who fired their weapons were Detective Grant Gepp, a 6-year veteran of the Fremont Police Department, and Detective Josh Harvey, an 11-year veteran of the Fremont Police Department. In total, there were 11 officers on the scene within a few moments of when the shooting occurred. 9 officers had body cameras. 2 undercover officers did not. Of the 9 body camera recordings, 5 officer views showed the incident from various perspectives, and you will see all of them here. 4 camera views were either blocked or did not show the shooting because the officer arrived after it occurred. The suspect in this incident was Stephen Patrick Moseley, a 36-year-old Fremont resident. The following items were recovered at the scene. The suspect's weapon was a Bauer Firearms Corporation, a .25 semi-automatic firearm, fully loaded with 1 round in the chamber. It was recovered next to the suspect's body. The gun was later determined to be a stolen firearm. We also recovered approximately 2.7 ounces of suspected methamphetamine, and this was recovered from his person. Suspect Moseley had prior arrests for stolen vehicles, drug possession and sales, multiple firearm possessions, brandishing of a firearm, home invasion, burglary, fighting with police, fleeing from police both on foot and in vehicles, assault with a deadly weapon, multiple probation and parole violations, and other illegal weapons violations. Had Stephen Moseley survived, the Fremont Police Department would have sought charges for Penal Code 245 D2, assault with a deadly weapon on a peace officer, Penal Code 148 A1, resisting arrest or delaying an arrest, Penal Code 29800, felon in possession of a firearm, Health and Safety Code 11378, possession of a controlled substance with intent to sell. Stephen Moseley had several outstanding felony warrants. There were 2 warrants for vehicle theft, 1 outstanding warrant for drug possession with intent to sell, 1 outstanding warrant for a felony probation violation related to weapons possession. Here are the details of the officer-involved shooting. I want to start by giving you a bit of context on what has been going on the last few months in Fremont. Since the beginning of 2021, Fremont, like many other major cities across the U.S., has experienced a sharp increase in gun-related crime, including shootings. In 2019, we made 27 separate arrests involving a firearm. In 2020, that number rose to 44. Fremont has averaged about 20 shootings per year since 2017, with 19 shootings in the year 2020. However, this year, we've already experienced 12 shooting incidents prior to April, including 2 other officer-involved shootings where subjects fired a gun at police officers, causing us to return fire in self-defense. We also had 1 homicide during a home invasion robbery where a suspect was shot by one of the residents. In response to this increase in gun-related crime, we have established an internal gun violence reduction team, bringing several of our investigative team members together to make an effort to proactively prevent or deter shootings and investigate them when they do occur. We are also working with Youth and Family Services on the social services aspect of gun violence prevention. With that context in mind, we'll go into the details of the recent officer-involved shooting. On Thursday, April 1st, 2021, at about 5 p.m., detectives from the newly created Gun Violence Reduction Team were attempting to locate known offender Stephen Moseley. Based on recent contacts with Moseley and information developed over the past month, our detectives were informed Moseley was in possession of a firearm, and they confirmed multiple outstanding felony warrants for his arrest. Detectives were able to locate Moseley and his vehicle at the Hyatt Place Hotel, located at 3101 West Warren Avenue, Fremont, California. Officers attempted to determine which room Moseley was inside, but when they weren't successful, they decided to make an arrest as he exited the building and walked to his vehicle. The detectives put together a plan with the goal to safely arrest Moseley. Part of the standard planning included contingencies for de-escalation options and the immediate availability of less than lethal tools. When Moseley exited the west side door of the Hyatt Place Hotel, we believe he spotted our detectives sitting outside the door in an unmarked vehicle because he immediately began to run in a northbound direction through the parking lot. Upon seeing Moseley begin to run and realizing they had been spotted, detectives turned on their vehicle lights and siren. Officer Howe, a Fremont police canine handler, gave commands to his canine partner to assist with stopping the suspect from fleeing. As Moseley ran northbound toward the northern parking lot of the Hyatt Place Hotel, Detective Gepp advised he could see what appeared to be a gun in Moseley's right hand. The police canine was able to quickly catch up to Moseley and latch onto Moseley's arm, which resulted in Moseley falling to the ground. As this was occurring, Detective Gepp exited his vehicle and could see that Moseley had a silver firearm in his right hand. After falling to the ground, Moseley began to punch the police canine multiple times and pointed the gun at the dog's head. Detective Harvey ran up to assist with the apprehension of Moseley when he also saw the silver firearm in Moseley's right hand. Detective Harvey and Detective Gepp began yelling, "Gun!" to alert the other officers to the fact Moseley had a gun in his hand, as other officers were also arriving on scene. In an effort to de-escalate and create distance, detectives who were initially moving toward Moseley and the canine in an effort to take him into custody began backing up and moving to cover behind their cars. They shouted several times to put the gun down. During the next few seconds, while Moseley was fighting with the canine, Moseley pointed the silver firearm twice at detectives who were in close proximity. During this time, Detective Gepp, fearing the suspect would shoot at him or other officers, fired his department-issued firearm at Moseley. Simultaneously, Detective Harvey also saw Moseley point the firearm toward him and toward other officers. He too fired his department-issued firearm at Moseley. After Moseley was hit with the officer's rounds, he stopped moving and was detained in handcuffs. Detectives rendered trauma care in an attempt to save his life. He was pronounced deceased at the scene by Freemont Fire Department at 6:34 p.m. The .25 caliber handgun was located near Moseley's hand and had to be kicked away from him before he was taken into custody. The firearms magazine was fully loaded with one round in the chamber. The entire event time between initial contact when the suspect began running and when the rounds were fired was 25 seconds. During this incident, Officer Howe's verbal commands were not working to get the dog to release Moseley's arm. It's our expectation, and we do train to ensure the dog can be recalled from a distance verbally. We also have redundancies in place in case a verbal command doesn't work. The first redundancy is the electronic collar. In this instance, the handler tried activating his e-collar several times to no avail. We believe we had an equipment failure with the e-collar. We have now replaced the e-collar, and we're retraining and recertifying the canine to ensure we're able to recall the dog effectively from a distance. However, it is possible, and I believe, that the use of the canine may have saved officer lives on this day. During the interviews of Officer Gepp and Officer Harvey, they stated they discharged their service weapons because they were in fear for their lives, the lives of their fellow officers, and the public. It was later determined that Detective Gepp fired his weapon 7 times. Detective Harvey fired 2 times. The canine received minor injuries from the suspect during the event. The Alameda County District Attorney's Office officer-involved shooting team was contacted at the outset of the investigation and was requested to complete an independent and parallel investigation. Representatives from their office were present for the initial investigation and for the interviews with the involved officers. The Alameda County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy of Moseley and stated he was struck 5 times, determining the cause of death as multiple gunshot wounds. The video you are going to watch is a compilation of security camera video and body-worn camera video. As noted before, by the end of the incident, there were 11 officers on scene. 9 officers had body-worn cameras, 2 undercover officers did not. Of the 9 recordings, 5 captured pertinent video, recording at least part of the incident from various angles. 4 recordings either had little or no view of the incident or the officers arrived after the shooting occurred. We have put the videos together in a way we believe provides the best understanding of what occurred. What you will see in this video is a combination of footage from the hotel surveillance cameras and officers' body-worn cameras. Then you will see an overhead view of the scene. We've overlaid the perspectives to orient you and to show you where the officers were standing while the cameras recorded. For each camera view, we will show you the incident in real time and then again using slow motion and zoom effects to spotlight crucial details from the investigation.
Show me your fucking hands! Shots fired. Shots fired at Hyatt Place. Start medical code 3. Go, go, go! Gun, 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 gun! 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 Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Give me a shield. Chris, back up! Chris, get back to me. Come back to me. Gun! Gun! Drop the gun!
Hey, dog on bite. He ran northbound. Hey, gun, gun, gun! 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 Drop the fucking gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Hey, we got shots fired.
Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
Dogs on bite, start 1141 code 3.
Back up! Chris, back to me.
This is a case where, in response to a sharp increase in shootings, our officers were asked to arrest a violent offender suspected of possessing a weapon. Although they attempted to use a canine as a less than lethal option, the suspect still chose to confront us with a gun. This event resulted in a tragic loss of life. The members of our department deeply value the sanctity of life and dedicate themselves to protecting others at the risk of their own safety. I'm grateful none of our officers were injured, and I want to thank them for being willing to stand between violent offenders and the community.
Okay. Pause that, drop the volume, and we'll get back into it. I have to say that I really liked the production of this video. I thought it was pretty well laid out. I liked how they did the overhead image showing the people's positions, and then they had the camera views on it, and then it showed the different camera views in sequence. I thought that was pretty neat. I think they did a pretty good job putting together a critical incident briefing video. As I've said before, I think that the West Coast does better videos than the East Coast. Where do I want to start at?
The following items were recovered: 25 semi-automatic.
This looks like a piece of crap gun. And I don't really know much about this thing, but I don't even see a trigger. So I don't know if it's just recessed back and it won't come out until the slides all the way forward. I don't know what's going on with this thing, but it looks like a piece of crap. And I'm glad that the suspect had this thing, because I think its crappy design may have had a contributing factor
Fully
in
loaded,
him
determined to
not being
be
able to shoot at
methamphetamine.
those officers. Here we got some meth, right? And people, they want to say that, some people want to say they think drugs should be legalized and they're victimless crimes when people use drugs. No. I think the only drug, and it's not just the drug, but it's also their circumstances involved. But I think, excuse me, I think the only drug and circumstances that would be a true victimless crime would be if a person owns their own property and they have grown their own marijuana plant and they've rolled their own joint and they smoke their own joint on their own property. That to me is probably the only drug and only circumstances that is truly victimless. Now, if I think hard into it, I might come up with some reasons about why it's not, but for right now, I would say that's probably the only drug and circumstances that is truly victimless. Marijuana is a plant. Of course, that's the pro-marijuana people's argument is it's all natural. It's a plant. It comes from the earth. Well, ultimately everything comes from the earth. So I don't really believe in that argument, but I get what they mean. It's a plant that grows on its own, and people who use meth on their own property, is it a victimless crime? No. The manufacture of the meth and the people who deal that meth are a clear and present danger to society. There are no clean, by the book, drug dealers that deal meth. They're all shitbag criminals, just like this shitbag criminal who has a long list of crimes associated with him. It's not like a person could work at a cell phone store one day and they'd be a normal person with no criminal background, and then all of a sudden decide, you know what, I'm tired of selling cell phones. I'm going to go sell meth. And then they go down to the street corner and meet up with the executive of, some drug dealing enterprise and say, hey man, I want to try my hand at this. And then they're given some product and set out to go make sales. And then, being a good entrepreneur, they recruit a couple people in a pyramid scheme kind of thing and get them to start selling as well. Like that don't happen. That's not the case. The la land of Breaking Bad, Walter Wright, whatever his name was, the school teacher who decided to take on the business venture of selling meth, that's bullcrap. Like there are not any good-hearted people out there who are involved in this illicit business. They're all pieces of shit. So there is no victimless crime when it comes to drugs like meth. Even if it's the person using it by themselves at home, the manufacturing of that crap is extremely dangerous. I have responded to several meth labs in the past, and they're hazardous materials scenes. They are straight up hazmat situations. The things that go into it are like anhydrous ammonia, the lithium out of batteries, lantern fluid, all kinds of just crap. And if people aren't careful, they'll blow themselves up trying to make it. They'll burn their house down, or of course, around our area, what they were mostly burning down was their trailers. Or mixing of all that stuff creates these fumes that are extremely toxic and will kill a person. The people who do the shake and bake, they'll concoct all this stuff together and they'll put them in bottles and leave them in a bag, and they'll leave these bags out in public while it cooks. That way they're not with it while it's cooking. And so if they get caught for doing something, then we'll get popped with that. And so you leave these little shake and bake things around. Some kid could come across a bag, or some homeless person, looking for stuff could come across this thing and blow themselves up or get a hold of it and contaminate a whole area with the hazardous materials, whatever. Just the manufacturing of this stuff is dangerous and puts the public at risk. The people involved in the distribution of these drugs are dangerous, violent offenders. All right. These guys they don't go door to door like little Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts trying to sell their product. And they're certainly not going to have a reasonable discussion with anyone who's trying to compete with them. People who are competing with them in their territory, they're going to fight it out, and they don't care who gets caught in the crossfire. So drugs like this are not victimless type of crimes. You can never convince me to believe otherwise. So this turd had some warrants for vehicle theft, and some drug possession with intent to sell, and felony probation violation. And so this anti-police crowd, this let's legalize drug crowd, they always try to spin the narrative of, well, he was just selling, it's just drugs, he's just trying to sell drugs, trying to make a living, that's not fair. He gets more time selling drugs than he would if he killed someone. this guy
with intent to sell.
is a bad person. It's not the narrative that these people try to spin. These are not just innocent people who just happen to possess some drugs and are trying to make ends meet and go sell stuff. Like, these are piece of shit people who do bad things in the community. But these people are completely oblivious to that fact because they never step outside of their little echo chamber, and they've never been in places where the reality hits. If they were to ever go on ride-alongs with the police and see this stuff firsthand, go to the courthouse when you're not doing anything and just sit in the courtrooms and watch. Like, you can do that right now. Like, you don't have to have any special privileges or licenses just to go to the courthouse and sit in on stuff. About the only things you wouldn't be able to sit in are juvenile courts and some of the court stuff that deals with like when older people have dementia and stuff like that, the probate kind of things. You wouldn't be able to go sit in those things where they terminate a person's rights or whatever. But, pretty much any other misdemeanor felony cases, you can go to any courtroom you want and sit in it, and you don't have to be involved in any way. You're just a regular citizen. And if these people would do that, if they would go sit in the courthouse and just watch, and then go down to the computer that a lot of courthouses have. They got a little computer down there for the public to use to be able to do public searches. They would just go do some basic research, like the people in these courtrooms that they're listening to or seeing on the docket. If they would just go down that little computer and type in those names and bring up all of the court listings that these people have been involved in and see the different charges and everything that have been brought against them, they would have a little bit, or you would think that they would have a little bit of a different mindset and lose this tree-hugging, save-a-thug bullcrap mindset. But they're not going to do that because they are very comfortable in their little echo chamber. Skipping through the little statistical
internal
stuff.
gun effort to proactive
I found this one interesting.
Gun-related crime. We have established an internal gun violence reduction team, bringing several of our investigative team members together to make an effort to proactively prevent or deter shootings and investigate them when they do occur.
So I think that one's, kind of a decent initiative, trying to go after the violent people.
We are also working with Youth and Family Services on the social services aspect of gun violence prevention. With that,
now, that one I found kind of interesting, working with the Youth and Family Services.
Working with Youth and Family Services on the social services aspect of gun violence prevention.
Trying to reach the teenagers, and the teenagers being a good number of the problem in these cities. Because the juvenile laws they're asinine. And there's another video from the Fresno Police Department that deals with just juveniles in an incident, and I'll go more into that. But the juvenile laws in this country are complete bullcrap, and they're not effective at all. They're not practical. They're not practical whatsoever.
With that context in mind, we'll go into the details of the recent officer-involved newly created gun violence reduction tax with Moseley and information developed over the termed Moseley and his vehicle at the Hyatt. Successful, they decided to make a plan with the goal of installation option west side door of the Hyatt Place Hotel. We believe he spotted our detectives' direction. He's turned on the commands to assist the northern parking lot of his right hand, resulted in and could begin to pump up to assist
like I said,
Detective Hart.
I gotta give it to them. They did a really good presentation on this video with all the nice overheads and diagrams and everything. Did really good.
The .25 caliber handgun was located near Moseley's.
So here's the pistol again without the little zip tie through the ejection port. And it's still difficult to see anything that resembles a trigger. I might have to do some searching on this thing on my own to see how this thing fires. I'm assuming that somewhere in here is the trigger, and this looks like part of the striker is sticking out. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know anything about this gun. It looks like a piece of crap though.
His hand and had to be kicked away from him before he was taken in. The entire event time between redundant in his e-collar became possible in the interview. Detective District.
All right, I thought I was a little bit closer than what I
Representatives
was.
from their office were present for the initial investigation and for the interviews with the involved officers on scene. 9 officers had body-worn. The officers arrived after the shooting occurred. Cameras and officers' body-worn cameras.
Here we are.
Then you will see an overhead view of the
Maybe
scene
not.
while the cameras slow motion and zoom effects to
Lots of talking
spotlight
in this
crucial
video.
details from the investigation.
All right. So here he goes along. And he's paranoid. I mean, he's stopping at the door and he's searching, he's looking around. And it's obvious that, he sees something of interest because he puts that phone in that pocket and he gets himself ready for running. All right. Look at that good boy right behind him. I love canines. As mine barks in the background. I'll have to be honest. Let's back this up. All right. This guy's trucking pretty good. All right. I honestly don't believe that they would have caught up to him if it were not for the dog. They were not running nearly as fast as that guy was. So the dog, as in most cases, is the MVP in this. The dog is relentless. So the dog, boom, takes him down, gets a hold of him. And this is where everyone converges. A lot of moving parts to this. Lots of people getting there.
Your fucking hands!
So this guy doesn't fire. But he certainly could have fired. And I do believe that he should have fired. The gun is very, very visible, even through the body camera footage, which a lot of times, it can be hard to tell details through body cam footage. But even through this, I mean, it is crystal clear. This guy has a gun in his hand, and he is waving it around. He's hitting the dog with it. He's pointing it towards those people. He's yelling, "Kill me." He could have fired. Now, maybe in this particular angle, maybe it wouldn't have been good.
Show me your fucking
I
hands!
mean, the dog is so close. Certainly right here, I think, would have been a good line of fire. The dog is to the left. He could have aimed down into this area right in here and started firing and still be confident enough, to not miss and hit the dog. But now that this angle's turned, this would be a difficult shot to take. So, maybe he had the idea to shoot, but as soon as he turned, maybe he decided not to. He certainly could have fired at that angle, but now that the dog got back into this angle, it would have been difficult to really make that shot, I think.
Shots fired at Hyatt Place. Start medical code 3.
Gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
It's hard to tell a lot about his view because some of his hand does cover this, and he's a little bit more further of a distance away. You can't see the dog very well.
Gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
But when he fires, the dog is to the right of him.
Gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
He doesn't have the biggest sight picture within this guy's chest cavity area due to the angle and the distance, but he's still a target. You can still make hits, and the dog has moved to this side of the person, so it does appear as though he has a safe line of sight, line of fire on this guy. But it's hard to say because his hands are in the way while he's shooting, and we can't see him and the dog for a lot of it.
Drop the gun! Give me a shield. Chris, back up! Chris, get back to me. Come back to me.
Oops, back.
Shield. Chris, back up! Chris, get back to me. Come back to me.
And of course, it's hard to get the freeze frame just right, but you see him tilt his gun all the way down when he tells the guy to come back to him. So he's maintaining good muzzle awareness, having good muzzle discipline. And that's something you got to be conscious of is your muzzle discipline. You don't want your muzzle covering things that you are not willing to destroy.
Gun! Drop the gun!
Gun! Drop the fucking gun! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
So we can't see the actual shooting because the vehicle covers it up, but we do see the dog's tail wagging on this side. So we know that when he comes away from the vehicle, we do see the dog on this side. And that would indicate that the dog was clear and giving him a clear line of sight and he could fire into the guy. But again, from this angle, you're not seeing a whole lot of the chest area. And so that's a smaller target to be firing into. The person that I think had one of the better angles was the guy who didn't fire at all.
Dogs on bike, start 1141 code 3.
Of course, the canine's perspective or the canine officer's perspective. This guy, he got pretty close without any cover, and I don't know if his mind was just focused on the dog and he just wasn't thinking clearly. I don't know, but he's pretty close to this thing without any cover going on, and he had to have been able to see the gun. I mean, it's just super clear. But there's no audio to this, so I'm assuming that he's trying to give the dog commands to come back to him. And you do see his hand reach up to his chest area and fiddle around. I believe that's the e-collar remote that he's trying to hit to get the dog to come to him. And of course, at this point, there's already been shots fired. They're shooting him now. You just don't be able to hear it. Of course, he's stopped moving now, so he's been hit already. But the dog is the dog's still doing work. The dog is in the zone. Again, his angle, he's close to the canine guy. His angle wouldn't have been all that great, and I think pretty much by the time he got there, one guy had already been shooting, the other guy had already popped a couple rounds into him. Well, maybe not. It's hard to tell without the audio.
This is a case where, in response to a sharp increase in shootings, our officers were asked to arrest a violent offender suspected of possessing a weapon. Although they attempted to use a canine as a less than lethal option.
Not much else to really say about this video. It's pretty clear and cut. Not much else to say. I'm kind of blank at this point. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.